There is a man standing in a clay pit, and his hands are raw from molding bricks, and he cannot stop thinking about drowning. His name doesn't matter. The text doesn't give it. But he was there, on the plain of Shinar, in the valley between two rivers, where the soil is black and soft, and the horizon stretches out so flat you can see the curve of the earth. He survived the flood. Maybe he was a child when the waters came. Maybe he heard his grandfather tell the story so many times. He can still hear the screaming in his sleep. The world died once. Every city, every field, every person, except 8 souls in a wooden box. And now they're building again. But this time, they're building something that can't be washed away. The plain of Shinar smells like bitumen and smoke. The bitumen bubbles up from the ground in black pools, thick and sticky, and stinking like hot tar on a summer road. Genesis 11 verse 3 tells us what they used it for. And they said one to another, "Go to, let us make brick, and burn them thoroughly." And they had brick for stone, and slime had they for mortar. They use it because stone is scarce here, and mud brick crumbles when it rains. But bitumen doesn't. It holds. It lasts. And they need this to last forever. The bricks are fired in kilns that burn day and night. The smoke hangs in the air so thick you can taste it on your tongue. Your eyes water. Your throat burns. But you keep working because everyone keeps working. Tens of thousands of people speaking the same language, singing the same work songs, moving like a single body with a single purpose. The rhythm of it is hypnotic. Brick, mortar, brick, mortar. Layer upon layer upon layer. The tower rises 1 cubit at a time. And every night, when your back is screaming and your hands are bleeding, and you collapse on your mat in the workers' camp, you look up at what you've built, and you feel something you haven't felt since before the flood. You feel permanent. They call it a ziggurat, a stepped pyramid of mud and tar and human desperation. The sides are smooth and steep, and they've started glazing them blue, like the sky. So when the sun hits it just right, the whole structure glows. At the top, they're building a temple chamber, a place where heaven and earth can meet, a place where humans can touch the divine without waiting for God to reach down first. But here's what drives the work, what keeps you molding bricks until your fingers crack and bleed. Listen to what they actually say in verse 4. "Go to, let us build us a city and a tower, whose top may reach unto heaven. And let us make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth." Lest we be scattered. You see, this isn't pride. Not really. This is terror. The kind of terror that comes from knowing how small you are, how forgotten, how easily erased. Your grandfather told you what it was like to watch the water rise, to hear the fists pounding on the ark from the outside, to wake up when it was over and see nothing, no landmarks, no graves, no evidence that anyone had ever existed at all. And God said He wouldn't flood the earth again. He promised, put a rainbow in the sky as proof, but you don't trust it. Because the same God who made that promise also sent the water in the first place. And if he scattered humanity once with a flood, what's to stop him from scattering you again with something else? So you build. You build a city so large that no one can ignore it. A tower so tall that travelers will see it from 100 miles away and know humans were here. We mattered. We made something that couldn't be unmade. You build a name for yourselves, because names are the only thing that survives death. And you build it all together, in one place, speaking one language, because unity is safety, and dispersion is death. This is what most people miss when they read this story. They see arrogance, rebellion, humans shaking their fists at God. But listen to the words again, lest we be scattered. That's not the voice of pride. That's the voice of someone who's already been broken once and cannot bear to be broken again. They're not building against God. They're building against oblivion. The work continues. Months become years. The tower grows. And something starts to happen in the camp that no one talks about, but everyone feels. You start to believe you might actually do it. You might actually build something that makes you unforgettable. You stand at the base of the tower and look up, and you cannot see the top anymore, because it's hidden in the haze. And for the first time since the flood, you think, maybe we're going to be okay. Maybe we don't need God's promise. Maybe we can save ourselves. That's when everything changes. It starts with the man working next to you. You've worked beside him for 3 years. You know his face better than your own brother's. You know the way he jokes when he's tired, the songs he hums while he molds bricks, the rhythm of his breathing. This morning, you turn to him to ask for more bitumen. You say the words you've said 1,000 times, and he looks at you like you just spoke in the language of birds. His mouth opens, sound comes out, but it's not words you understand. It's garbled, wet, wrong. He's looking at you with the same confusion you're feeling. And then he's shouting, and you're shouting back, and neither of you understands the other. And the panic in his eyes is a mirror of the panic in yours. And then you hear it, all around you, the cacophony, 50,000 voices that used to sound like one organism now sound like 50,000 different kinds of chaos. People screaming in languages that didn't exist 5 minutes ago. Foremen trying to give orders that no one can follow. A woman crying for her daughter, and her daughter answering in syllables her mother's ears cannot decode. The tower doesn't fall. That's not what happens. The tower just stops, because you cannot build a tower when you cannot tell someone to hand you a brick. Here's what God says in verse 6. Behold, the people is one, and they have all one language, and this they begin to do. And now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do. Nothing will be restrained from them. God isn't impressed by the tower. He's concerned about what happens when humans believe there's no limit to what they can accomplish on their own. When they think unity and language and effort can replace dependence on Him. So verse 7, Go to, let us go down, and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. Then verse 8, So the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth, and they left off to build the city. Notice what the text doesn't say. It doesn't say God destroyed the tower. It doesn't say he struck them with lightning, or sent another flood, or crushed them under falling bricks. He just made them unable to understand each other. And that was enough. That was more than enough. Because the thing they were most afraid of, being scattered, being alone, being unmemorable, became inevitable the moment they could no longer speak. You pack your tools. You look for your family. You find some of them. Not all. Your brother is somewhere in the crowd, but you cannot call his name in a way he'll recognize. Your daughter is holding your hand and crying, and you don't understand what she's saying, and she doesn't understand why you don't understand. You walk away from the city, south or east or north. It doesn't matter. The only direction is away. And as you walk, you look back once. The tower is still there, still standing, blue and gleaming and utterly useless. A monument to the thing you built to make yourself unforgettable, and no one will remember who built it or why. Maybe you've been building your own tower. Maybe it's the promotion you're killing yourself for because you think if you just get the title, people will finally take you seriously. Maybe it's the Instagram feed you curate like a museum exhibit because if the photos look flawless, no one will know how fractured you feel. Maybe it's the way you parent. Not to raise your kids, but to prove you're not your mother. To build a name for yourself as the one who got it right. Maybe it's the relationship you're clinging to, even though it's hollow. Because being alone feels like being scattered, and you'd rather suffocate than disappear. And maybe you're exhausted. Maybe you've been laying brick after brick for years, and you look up at what you've built, and you realize it still doesn't feel like enough. It's never enough. Because you're building against death, and death doesn't care what you build. God came down to see the tower. Genesis 11, verse 5. And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower, which the children of men builded. That's the detail that should wreck you. Their tower was supposed to reach heaven, and God had to descend just to notice it. What they built to touch the sky didn't even register as a blip on the divine radar. You cannot build your way into permanence. You cannot construct a name for yourself that will outlast the grave. You cannot make yourself unforgettable through human effort, no matter how impressive, no matter how unified, no matter how tall the tower gets. But here's the hope buried in this story, the hope no one tells you. God scattered them, yes, but he didn't erase them. They went into all the earth, and they had children, and those children had children, and the languages multiplied, and the nations formed, and thousands of years later, God himself walked on that earth as a man. He entered the scattering. He spoke Aramaic in a backwater province to people who'd been scattered so many times they'd lost count. And he said the thing the people at Babel never believed. You don't have to make a name for yourself. I already know your name. You don't have to build a tower to reach me. I came down to reach you. The tower you're building in the dark, alone, with blistered hands and a terrified heart. You can stop. You don't need it. the thing you're most afraid of. Being forgotten, being scattered, disappearing without a trace. That's not your future. Because the God who confused your language at Babel is the same God who learned your language in Bethlehem. He didn't stay in heaven and wait for you to climb up. He came down, and he's still coming down into your 3 a.m. panic, into your exhaustion, into the moment right now when you realize you've been building something that can't save you. You can lay down the brick. You can walk away from the tower. Because the permanence you're trying to build with bleeding hands, he's offering with scarred ones.